Cassie Brown here. Welcome to this video. Today I'll be showing you how to make these beautiful peonies. They're made from crepe paper with wires at the back. I'll show you how to create it all. Hope you enjoy. So the crepe paper I've decided to use for these particular peonies is this one here. Good quality paper, it's available online, and as you can see here, this is the really important bit. It's 250% stretch, which means it's got a lot of elasticity, which is what you need for making these beautiful petals. So let's get started. I've chose these two colours today, so this is what I'm going to be working with. Now I've got two sizes of scissors, just because for doing the longer strips and for doing more detailed work, I've got the slightly smaller pair. So I'm going to start by doing the centre. Let's just move this one out. So the centre of the peony is this little section here, and that's the bit we're focusing on first. So when you first open your paper, you're going to see that it's got lines on it. So the lines are coming down the paper and it's quite a long strip. So what I need to do is cut along that nice long strip. So I'm going to start with my big scissors and I'm cutting about 1.5 inches in depth, and then I'm cutting along and cut out. So I have a nice long strip there. Now let's move the paper out of the way and we'll just measure this so that you can see how much I've cut. So about 7 inches. Now when I'm talking to you about the stretch, when I stretch this it will become a lot longer. I'm not going to do that just yet. I want to cut it first. So we're going to fold it in half and then fold in half again. Now this will just make it a little bit easier when it comes to doing the little stamens. So with a good strong pair of scissors, I'm going to start cutting up the way of the grain of the paper. You can just about see that. Now I'm not cutting all the way to the end. This is really important. If I cut to the end, then I'm going to have lots and lots of strips of paper. So I want them all to be attached. So I keep carefully cutting along. When I'm teaching this in person, I'll sometimes say draw a little line so that you know not to cut above that line. Sometimes it's very easy to get carried away as you're chatting and accidentally cut that. So we're gradually moving along the paper. And don't worry if you accidentally cut a few out. It's absolutely fine. There's so many there, so many little bits of paper, you're not going to notice. Now the width of these tiny little cuts, I'm going to say is about 1 millimetre, maybe 2 millimetre. I just think the thinner they are, the better they look. Now when I get right to the end here, I'm just going to flip it over because it's just easier to hold. And then there we go. So now I've cut those, let's open up. And as you can see, we've got a kind of grass skirt going on there. Really pretty shape. So what I'm going to do now is stretch just a little bit. Just a little bit. Now can you see as I'm doing this, this instantly changes the pattern. And you can see it's made that piece of paper now go to over 12 inches long. So this is where the stretch is quite important when you're making these flowers. Now I'm going to get myself a wire. Now this is a 24 gauge green wire and I've cut it in half. I'm going to put a little hook on the end. Just a nice hook like so. And then we're going to start gluing. So we're going to come to our glue. Now always make sure that there's no dried glue at the end. They do come with little caps. And then we can just put a tiny bit of glue where we're going to start rolling. So I always start by a fold to start with. So I folded that over and hooked the wires in the middle. And then what we can do is start going around This does get a little bit tricky because the glue will squelch out, but that's okay. You just keep concentrating on rolling this up and squeezing around that wire because we really want that wire to be stuck solid. Just take a little bit of glue off my hands and then we keep going. As you can see, I am stretching as I move around, so this is actually going to be even longer by the time I've finished, but this will give a lovely, lovely centre. So I'm trying to keep the bottom as even as possible. I'm not worried about the top just yet. We're going to come back to that in a moment. So at the moment, focus on that bottom bit. I'm going to put a little bit of glue just towards the end and a little bit there as well. And then we just keep going. Give it a good little squeeze every now and again, just to make sure that that's definitely sticking. And then just hold firm just for maybe a minute, probably not even that, to be honest, because that will just make it secure. Now, as you can see, it looks like a very strange, maybe witch's broom, but that's exactly how we want it to look. Now what I want to do is open it up a little bit. As you can see, those little cuts have made that lovely shape. Now we want to curl them in. Now you can use a pencil to do this, and I'm just going in and very gently kind of curling them a little bit towards the middle. So I'm just trying to persuade those little stamens that they want to curl inwards. This helps to make it look a little bit more realistic. And then I'm just pulling them out a little bit. If you get some that are stuck together, that's fine. Just separate them. And there you go. And as you can see, there are some thicker than others, and I think that looks absolutely fine. That's a beautiful centre. So once we've done that, we're going to put it to one side to leave it to dry. And then we're going to turn our attention to the petals. So we have 3 different sizes. And if I just get my tape measure, you can see the biggest petal is 6 centimetres. The medium is 4.5 centimetres. And then the very small one is about 3.5 centimetres. So I don't need that tape measure anymore. That was just to show you. Now what we're going to do to start with is create the strips that we need. So I'm going to hold my template, and this time please note that the lines on the paper are going down the petal, not across. So that's very, very important. Now I'm going to cut these strips, and I need 3 strips for the large one. So 1, 2, and this is 3. There we go. Put that to one side, and then we're going to look at the smaller ones. So for the medium size, we just need 2 strips for this. So again, using that little template there, 1, 2. And these templates are all available on my website. There we go. And then this very, very tiny one as well. Now we just need 1 strip for this one. So keep going. All the way to the end. So we have 1 strip for the very small one, 2 strips for the medium, and 3 strips for the large. Now you might use a few more or a few less. Please don't worry about that. You'll find that this peony changes every time you make it, which is really nice actually. So I'm going to focus on the really small one to start with. And what we're going to do is measure the length of it and then fold. Now once we've made that first fold, and we know that our template fits on that first little fold, I want you to fold like a concertina now. So just backwards and forwards. And this is going to be so that we can cut lots of petals out all at the same time. There we go. Now I'm going to put that back on there, make sure it still fits, which it does. And then with our big scissors, we start cutting that template out. Now to make it easier, I do tend to cut all the way around the template first. I'm going to come back to doing the little bit of detail and then cut that top piece off. That bit's really important, otherwise your petals will stay together. Now we just need to cut that little bit in there, so I'm going to go to smaller scissors because we just need to round off. So taking the template off, and we just go in, around and in, and there we have it. It's almost like a little mitten shape. And I've just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 petals there for that first one. Now we put that to one side. And then we move on to the medium. So again, exactly the same. I'm just going to measure along and then fold. And always make sure that your lines on the paper is going down the petal, because they just stretch much better when that happens. So this one I think I'm going to get 5 folds out of. Now if ever you do get a piece which is a little bit shorter, don't worry. Always just make sure that that's to the bottom of the petal, but it's still perfectly acceptable. And then I'm going to cut round. I do find it easier to cut around and then gradually move the paper. Now you could put a paper clip on here if you found that easier, and then cut that little piece off, and there we go. So there's 5 of those, and we do exactly the same with the second strip. So again, just measure. Now this one is a little bit more time consuming because you have to measure all the petals, and obviously there's a lot more petals than previous tutorials that I've done, but I really do think it's worth it because I think it looks lovely and it really does add texture to your arrangement as well. So once again, just gradually going round. Always move the template, don't try and struggle with the scissors. You put the scissors where they're comfortable in your hand as you're going around. And this is a great tutorial to share with friends and family. So those are all my medium size ones. So now we turn our attention to the large one. Now I know that that's quite a large petal, so I'm only going to get 4 out of here. So we fold and we fold again. And I'm just going to do that with all of my pieces of paper first, and then I'll cut them all out at the same time. 1, 2, and this one's number 3. There we go. There we have it. Now I don't tend to stack all these up and try and cut them all out in one go. The scissors will struggle to get through because the paper is quite thick. So I do tend to just do a strip at a time, because you are still cutting out 4 in one go, so it's still quite a good amount. Now as you can see, I haven't done that little V shape, so I'm just going to cut that in now. There we are. Make those disappear. Now the one thing I keep mentioning to you is to make sure you cut the end, and I just want to show you, if you don't cut the end, you'll end up with lots of sort of dicky bows, I call them. That's absolutely fine, but it is much easier to just trim the end off. Just give that a quick little cut, because then it does make individual petals. You might get a little bit confused otherwise with the shape. Now with these ones, I'm not going to cut this little V out. I'm going to show you how to make it a little bit more individual. Let's just cut the bottom off. Now I haven't gone around that very well, as you can see, so I'm just neatening the edges a little bit. And then this time, I'm going to cut the little V out on the other side. So can you see it's not quite the same? And it's on the other side. It's just to add a little bit of difference to the petals. I think it just adds interest and it makes it look nice too. Peony has got that many different petals on it. I did actually dissect one once and it had over 200 petals because I was reproducing it in sugar. It was a big job. So we chop that little bit off the end. And then again, you haven't always got to do that little V. I'm going to do a really small one in that one. In fact, let's do two. Why not? Let's jazz it up a bit. There we go. So then, out of that one template, we've actually got 3 different shapes. So they're all the same size, but they're slightly different shapes the way I've cut them on the end. So now we've got all our templates ready. Time to do a bit of shaping. So we start with our little ones, which are here. I'm going to give them a little squeeze, and can you see how immediately, as I pull them, the shape changes and they want to make this instant little cup shape. So we do this with all of them, and these are the very small petals that are going to go right in the centre. Now when you're doing this, do turn them over so that they look slightly different. As you can see, I've got a nail, so I might be cheating a little bit because I do use that just to pull them slightly. So those are my first petals ready to go, and I put them in my pile. Now we go to the medium ones, and these are the same kind of thing. So I'm just giving them that little cup and then frilling the edges slightly. And as you can see, they do change shape quite quickly. So from being quite small, they've now gone quite large. So the easiest way to do this is to hold your 2 fingers and to pull, and that way you get that nice cup shape. And then I do tend to just make it a little bit frilly around the edges. And it's amazing how quickly these petals change in shape as you're doing this. And as you can see, this is why we don't need that many, because actually they're doubling in size as soon as I start pulling them. Sometimes I only just pull the edges to give it a little bit of a frill. So I do like all the petals to be different, because when I did study the peony, that's the one thing I really pulled out, is that every petal was slightly different. There we go. So that is your medium. Now let's go on to the large. And again, these are slightly different because we've made the edges. So if you were doing this for a competition or for something really special, I would just get a little pair of scissors and just trim the edges there to make them really soft, so that there's no sharp pieces. I think that really makes it look lovely. There we are. And again, these are going really big and doubling in size. And we do this with all of the petals we have. It is a little bit time consuming, like I've said, but it's well worth it. Make sure you don't rip that one off as you're pulling though. And that's a little bit sharp again, so I'm just going to cut that off so it's a nice, neat, rounded little area. It's like they've got little thumbs, I think. So I do make sure the thumb is sometimes on the other side. And again, just round off any edges that look a little bit too sharp. Now you can do these a couple at a time. I'm just doing them separately today. This one hiding. And there we go. We are nearly ready to start gluing together. Okay, so there's all our petals. We have a really good selection there. And you can see how much they've grown from the actual template sizes that you had. So what we're going to do now is come back to our centre. And what we need to do is start adding our little baby ones first. And we add just at the bottom of that cut. So this little bit that's flat here is actually going to be our base that we're working on. Now, as always, I put the glue on the bottom of each petal. Now, I've added quite a lot to that one, so let me just take a little bit off. And then we add on. And you can see the colours look lovely. And you can see that sticks really well. So again, I tend to line them all up. A little blob of glue on each one. And you can get smaller glue pots. But I find when you're doing a lot of this, the big one works well. Now what you can do is bring these up a little bit so that it's raised up a little higher. And don't worry about this section here because no one actually sees that. That one's a little bit higher too. The difficult thing is knowing where to put them actually. I always, as you can see, I'm stopping and I'm looking down on it because I want to see how it looks. When you look into a peony, you don't tend to look at the side, you tend to look right into it, which is where the beauty lies. I'm going to put that one there, I think. There we are. So that is the start of my peony. That's looking good and I'm happy with that so far. So now I'm going to get my other petals, and as you can see they're all a little bit quirky and different. And I'm loving this one. This is my favourite because that's really gone quirky. So I'm putting glue on all of the petals. There we are. Let's just see how they look. So we come back to our peony and I start putting these on the same way. Now as you can see, just hold it for a second because that will really make sure it's secure. And sometimes I just give it a little fold back just so that when you're shaping it later, it's kind of sturdy. And then we add the next one. And there's no particular pattern that I'm following as I'm adding these. They're just going on very random. Wherever I fancy putting them, I put one. But you can see it's already starting to look really good. But I'm not putting them in any particular pattern. Quite random as I put them on. You can see that's starting to add that little bit of depth now. It's looking good. This beautiful quirky one, which is my favourite, I'm going to put over here. Can you see it looks like half a petal, but it really looks like it's trying to burst open. Oh, and it wants to fall off. Let's just put it back on. If that does happen, if the petals fall off, just hold them down for a minute. It's because I'm trying to work a little bit too fast. And it is quite warm today as well, so that could be another reason. So you can see that really starts to take a shape now. And I will just spend a minute every now and again just holding them all together, squeezing at the back, just making sure they're all staying on. Every now and again I'll take a look at the front, and I must admit I think that actually looks a bit like a poppy at the moment. This is where sometimes you get inspiration to do other flowers. When you're building one up, you can soon see how it can develop into another one. This could very easily be a double poppy. So I'm just holding it, making it a little bit firm. There you go. Now when I put this down, I tend to put it upside down because the petals aren't going to get damaged then. And then what I'm going to do is get the rest of my petals, get them all out ready, and then again we start gluing. So a little bit of glue on the base of each one. And I'm never in a rush with these. You never know if you're going to use them all, so I would suggest not putting glue on all of them, just in case. I'm going to leave those 4 out, just in case. Same as I did leave one of those out actually, which I've just realised, but that's fine. So now I'm going to turn it over and start entering my next petals. So can you see I'm still at the base there? I've still got a lot of colour here, a lot of the yellow stamens coming through. You have to be careful not to start moving down the wire, otherwise it'll look a bit like a seeded cabbage. So we just hold that firm. And this one I'm going to add here. And you can see now it's becoming wider, which is what we want. If we started to move down, then it would change the shape again. Let's put one in the middle there. And we can just keep stopping and look at it, because we can see where we need to add more petals. This side's looking lovely, but we need to add more petals over here. And I'm adding them right to the back. And we just push them in. Now I'm trying not to add the same shape petals. That's one thing I like to do. I like to jazz it up a bit and add slightly different ones. Decisions. I always find it very hard to try and be random, which is exactly what I'm trying to do with this. There we are, that's looking really good. Not sure if this one's the last one actually. And you can see that is looking beautiful. Stunning colours as well. There we go. I might just, do I want to add this last one somewhere? I'm not sure actually. So what we do if we're not sure, we just hold this down, because sometimes the glue hasn't quite set and they'll all want to move around. So we're just squeezing the glue. Make sure it's nice and firm at the back. And then when we look at the front, we tend to see if there's a gap or if it's odd shaped. So I think maybe another one just there. Yeah, perfect. And obviously you can keep going with this. The more petals you add, I think the better it looks personally. So that's looking really good. Just pull some of those petals down a bit as well. Really let that burst open. There we are. And then I'm going to turn it upside down. And again, just let it be for a little bit, just so that it dries a tiny bit. Now for the calyx of this, I've got some nice green. And I tend to do most of my calyxes the same. So I'm just going to cut a strip. Now this one's slightly different because I'm doing big triangles. So at an angle, and I'm doing just triangular shapes. and I'm doing a few of them. There we are. Now with your triangular shapes, hold the bottom, and then if you pull them and stretch the paper, you can see how it curls. And that's perfect, that's exactly what we want. Not necessarily this long, but they'll be fine. I always think just a little bit of green at the back always makes it look more finished. And also, it's what I call covering up the mechanics. So you're actually covering up this little bit now, because we don't want people to see all of that. And we're just holding it on. And can you see how that covers up quite a lot straight away? So just that little bit of glue right at the base here. And I think maybe 5 or 6 of these will be fine. If I was doing this in sugar, then I would actually count the real thing. I know that they should be a little bit shorter than this, but I just think they look quite nice actually. I like the shape. I'm using a little bit of artistic license on this. And the downside is it will want to stick to you rather than itself. So just take your time. And the glue will get all over your hands. Get into a little bit of a mess. But that's okay. There we are. And I'm just going to put one more. I think that one. Just to the end there. And as you can see, that's covered up that little base that you had as well. So it really does finish off the peony. Now I'm going to pick it up, and when I turn it round, there we have it. Our beautiful, beautiful peony. And then these are 2 others that I've made. The only difference is I've stretched the petals a little bit more on this one than what I have on those. So it makes it look a little bit bigger, but they're exactly the same templates that I've used. So those are my beautiful flowers. Thanks for watching.